Who were the Stoics? The hook and the birth of Stoicism. Have you ever wondered why some people remain calm while the whole world falls apart around them? Why some walk through storms with steady steps, and why their minds do not shake even when everything else does? Who were these people who could hold such peace in their hearts? They were called the Stoics. Their wisdom has traveled across centuries like a quiet river, reaching us even now, in this noisy modern age. But before we enter their world, let us step back into a time when chaos and uncertainty ruled, when kingdoms fell, when death and loss were everywhere, and men and women searched desperately for something that could not be destroyed. It was in this search that Stoicism was born. A world in turmoil. Picture Athens, centuries before Christ, a city alive with voices. Merchants haggling in the marketplace. Philosophers arguing in the squares. Soldiers marching through the streets. A place of brilliance, but also of unrest. Empires rose and fell. Wars bled across the land. Fortunes were won and lost in a single day. Life was uncertain. One could be wealthy in the morning, ruined by nightfall. One could be healthy one season, struck down by plague the next. In such a world, people searched for anchors, for something steady in the storm. Religion gave promises. Politics offered power. Pleasure whispered escape. But none of these lasted. None of them held steady when life tore away comfort and safety. And then, from the wreckage of loss, came a man who sought a deeper way. Zeno of Citium. His name was Zeno of Citium. He was not born a poor man. His family were merchants, wealthy traders who sent ships across the sea. As a young man, Zeno himself commanded such ships, carrying purple dye, a precious good worth fortunes. He lived with wealth, with expectation, with a clear path ahead. But life has a way of tearing away illusions. One voyage ended in disaster. A shipwreck destroyed his cargo, his wealth, his place in the world. Stripped of everything, Zeno wandered into Athens, a stranger in a strange city. It was in a bookshop that his life turned. He picked up a scroll about Socrates, the philosopher who had faced death without fear, who had valued virtue over life itself. Zeno felt something stir. He asked the bookseller, "Where can I find men like this?" And the bookseller pointed, not to temples or courts, but to a humble philosopher walking by. Zeno followed him, and his journey began. The Painted Porch. In time, Zeno began to teach his own philosophy. But he did not hide in private schools. He walked to the Stoic, the Painted Porch of Athens, a place open to everyone, merchants, beggars, soldiers, politicians. There, under the painted walls, he spoke. And from that porch, his students were called the Stoics. What did they believe? Not in endless debate, not in chasing pleasure, not in wealth, not in superstition. They believed in living in harmony with nature, by which they meant reality itself, the order of the universe, the rhythm of life. They said, "Some things are in your control. Some things are not. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Your body, your health, your wealth, the opinions of others, these may all be taken away. But your thoughts, your choices, your actions, these are yours. Guard them. Master them. Build virtue there, for that is the only true good." Seeds of an enduring philosophy. Zeno taught that life is not measured by possessions or by years, but by character. He urged his followers to practice self-control, courage, justice, and wisdom. If fortune turned against you, accept it. If suffering came, endure it. If death approached, meet it calmly. The Stoics did not teach despair. They did not say the world was meaningless. They said, the world is full of change, but within change there is order. And if we live according to that order, with reason and virtue, we find freedom. From that painted porch, the seeds of Stoicism spread. From Zeno came Cleanthes, from Cleanthes came Chrysippus, and from them the school grew. Centuries later, Stoicism would walk into Rome, into the palaces of emperors and the hearts of slaves, into the lives of men who would test it in fire. But it all began with a shipwrecked merchant who chose to seek wisdom instead of despair. Act 2, Seneca, the statesman and the struggle. Now let us move forward, from Greece into Rome, the beating heart of empire. Rome was a place of power, of wealth, of spectacle. Gladiators fought for blood. Senators fought for control. Emperors rose and fell. Behind the marble beauty of Rome lay ambition, betrayal, and fear. And it was here that Stoicism took root once more. The life of Seneca. Seneca was born into wealth, into privilege. He was trained in rhetoric, in philosophy, in politics. He was brilliant, persuasive, a man of words and ideas. But his life was not easy. He suffered sickness, weakness, moments when death seemed close. He lived at court, close to emperors, where danger and temptation walked hand in hand. He became tutor and advisor to Nero, the young emperor who would later be known for cruelty. Seneca found himself in the middle of power's storm, trying to guide, trying to restrain, yet often caught in the compromises of politics. The contradiction. Seneca wrote of simplicity, of avoiding luxury, of the shortness of life. And yet, he himself grew rich. He owned villas, estates, wealth beyond measure. Some accused him of hypocrisy. Some saw him as divided, torn between philosophy and politics. And perhaps that is why his writings still speak to us. Because Seneca was not a distant saint. He was a man like us, struggling, failing, striving to hold on to wisdom in the midst of contradiction. His teachings. Seneca warned that life is short, that we waste our days as though we had endless years. He said, "It is not that life is too short, but that we waste much of it." He urged his readers to live each day as if it were a complete life, to guard time more carefully than wealth, for lost wealth may be regained, but lost time is gone forever. He wrote about anger, calling it a temporary madness, the passion that destroys judgment, the fire that consumes both victim and bearer. He spoke of death, not as an enemy to fear, but as a natural part of life's cycle. He reminded his readers, death is not in our control, but how we face it is. The end of Seneca. Seneca's life ended tragically. Accused of conspiracy against Nero, he was ordered to take his own life. In his final moments, he tried to live the Stoic way, calm, steady, accepting of fate. His writings, however, survived. And in them, we hear a man wrestling with life, with weakness, with power, with mortality. Through him, Stoicism became not just a school for philosophers, but a guide for anyone struggling in the chaos of the world. Act 3, Epictetus, the slave who found freedom. Now we turn to a man of a different world. Not a statesman, not a wealthy merchant, not an emperor. A slave. His name was Epictetus. A life in chains. Born into slavery, Epictetus had no wealth, no freedom, no status. He belonged to another man. His body could be beaten, chained, commanded. Yet within this life of bondage, he discovered something remarkable, freedom of the mind. Epictetus realized that while others controlled his body, his will remained his own. His thoughts, his judgments, his choices, these were beyond the reach of masters. And so he declared, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus himself can overpower my will." The philosophy of freedom. Epictetus taught that freedom does not depend on power, or wealth, or politics. True freedom is the mastery of desire and fear. We suffer, he said, not from events, but from our opinions about them. If you lose wealth, it is not the event that destroys you, but your judgment that wealth was essential. If someone insults you, it is not the insult itself that wounds, but your choice to see it as harm. Thus, the key to peace is not controlling the world, but controlling ourselves. The teacher. When Epictetus was freed, he became a teacher. He had no grand school, no wealth. He gathered students and spoke, often with sharp words, often with humor, always with clarity. His students wrote down his lessons, which survive as the Discourses and the Enchiridion. In them, we hear a voice both firm and compassionate. A voice that says, "Do not pray for life to be easier, pray for yourself to be stronger." His legacy. Epictetus lived humbly, with little, yet his influence reached far. Soldiers, leaders, and even emperors read his words. He proved that Stoicism was not for the privileged alone. It was for anyone, in any station, who sought freedom of the soul. Act 4, Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king. Finally, we come to one of the most famous Stoics of all, Marcus Aurelius. An emperor. A general. A ruler of Rome at its height. And yet, also a student of philosophy. A heavy crown. Marcus did not seek power, but it was laid upon him. As emperor, he faced endless wars, rebellions, the burden of rule. He faced plague that swept through the empire, killing millions. He carried responsibility heavier than most men could bear. And yet, in the quiet of the night, in his tent among soldiers, he wrote the Meditations. He did not write for others. He did not publish. He wrote for himself, reminders to stay true, notes to guide his own soul. Those notes became known as Meditations. In them, we see the inner world of a man burdened with power, reminding himself, rise each day to do your duty, to serve, to act with justice. He told himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He reminded himself, life is short, death is natural, the universe is vast. Do not waste time on anger, pride, or fear. The philosopher emperor. Imagine, the most powerful man in the world, whispering to himself not of conquest or glory, but of humility, duty, and acceptance. Marcus Aurelius became the model of the philosopher king. And his words, written in hardship, still comfort and inspire. Act 5, the common thread and why Stoicism still matters. So who were the Stoics? They were Zeno, shipwrecked yet steadfast. They were Seneca, wealthy yet restless. They were Epictetus, enslaved yet free. They were Marcus Aurelius, emperor yet humble. Different lives, same spirit. The common thread. The Stoics taught that the good life does not depend on fortune. It depends on virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, self-control. It depends on knowing what is in your control, and letting go of what is not. It depends on living in harmony with nature, accepting the flow of change, meeting death not with fear but with calm. Why it still matters. Empires have fallen. Centuries have passed. Yet the questions the Stoics asked remain the same. How do we live well in a world of uncertainty? How do we face loss, pain, injustice, and death? How do we hold peace in a storm? Their answers remain, guard your mind, master yourself, live with virtue, accept fate, serve others, walk steadily. In an age of noise, of speed, of endless desire, their quiet wisdom is more needed than ever. Closing reflection. Who were the Stoics? They were men and women who chose courage over fear, reason over passion, virtue over corruption. They walked through storms, but the storms did not own them. And now their voices reach us, asking, will you live as they did? Will you master what is yours, and let go of what is not? Will you find freedom within, even as the world shifts around you? Like and subscribe for more.